Hi, I'm Rene Ritchie. Welcome back to Vector. This is the Apple Watch Series 4. I'm going to just keep saying this. Apple Watch is the most important product Apple has ever made. That's not hyperbole. It's certainly not fan service. And you'd have to be absolutely the worst with an 10S maxed sized stick up the apps to even consider calling it bullshit. Because Apple Watch saves lives, and it does it over and over again by staying connected to you and keeping you connected, even in times of crisis and emergency, by encouraging you to stay active regularly, reliably, quantifiably, and by alerting you to potentially life-threatening conditions and situations before they threaten your life. Apple Watch has been consistently, repeatedly, legitimately saving lives. Now, sure, phones save lives. Tablets, PCs, helicopters, ultrasounds, a lot of technology, old and new, medical and general, saves lives. Absolutely. But Apple Watch is uniquely positioned, literally, to do so in dedicated and persistent ways. And with Series 4, Apple isn't just doubling down, it's tripling up, improving connectivity, activity, and longevity. There's also a new, bigger edge-to-edge design as well, because let's face it, if you're gonna live longer and healthier, you're gonna wanna look good and have fun while doing it. Is Apple Watch Series 4 perfect? No, of course not. It's still missing core features like always on time, sleep tracking, and a way for me to make a damn Superman photo face with enough complications to actually be useful. It also starts at $399 or $499 if you want it with cellular networking, which is still a good chunk of change for what most people remains a tertiary computing device at best. But is Apple Watch Series 4 good enough that you should seriously consider upgrading or getting in on this whole wrist computer thing for the first time? That's the question that matters, and the one I've spent the last week with a 44mm space gray model trying to figure out. So, here's the answer. Apple Watch Series 4, the display. Apple likes to talk about closing all the rings, but for the last 4 years, there's been this one big black ring even Apple couldn't close, the bezel around the Apple Watch display. It feels like we've always been at war with bezels, the thick, flat mats that frame the artwork of the display. They helped house all the vital internal components, but contributed nothing informational to the user. And for that, they had to die. Killing them took time and technology. Apple got iPhone X there first, cramming the plus-size display into the regular-sized casing. Now it's doing the same thing with Watch, cramming the 42mm sized display into a 38mm sized casing, and an even bigger display into the 42mm sized casing, 35% and 32% respectively. A new technology called low temperature polycrystalline oxide, or LTPO, helps keep the power consumption down. It's an end not just to bezels, but to compromise. If your eyes previously lusted after the 42mm screen, but your wrist demanded the 38mm case, well, now you can get the new 40mm watch and have the best of both. If you were good with the old 42mm, now you can be even better with the new 44mm. Like with iPhone X, sense a pattern here, Apple is putting all that new display space to good use. The built-in apps and interfaces have all been taken edge to edge. Text is bigger and easier to read. Buttons are larger and easier to tap. There are new watch faces to show it off as well, including fire and water, vapor, and get this, liquid metal. They're all sourced from real-world material photography and animated to dance under the display, to light it up, and to play along the edges. Now, you can make them go full screen, but then they can't hold any complications, and so are only really good for tuning out or for tech demoing it up. They can also be constrained into circles though, which don't look as impressive but free up valuable space for a few complications, basically 2 eyes and a smile. The Breathe face, which comes in classic, calm, or focus flavors, lets you center yourself and restore a state of mindfulness with a turn of your wrist. The instant accessibility comes at the expense of the full guided app experience, more of a sip than a savor, but you can tap on the face to bring up the app whenever you want to go deeper. As far as complications go, you can keep it clean or you can add the same smiley face layout as the material faces. There are still no custom watch faces, and the Photos face still lacks enough complications to make it an even halfway decent workaround. Worse, there's still no always-on time, so there's still no way to subtly, considerately check just when exactly it is without twisting your wrist or tapping the display or otherwise signaling to absolutely anyone and everyone around you that you exhaust me. I'm counting the seconds until I can get away from you. I get that battery budget is still limited, but we're 4 versions in and painfully, maybe poetically, Apple Watch's eponymous feature is still the biggest one missing. Where the watch teams hit it out of the proverbial Apple Park, is with the new infographic and infographic modular faces and their super complications. Forget eye candy. These show what the new edge-to-edge displays really enable. I'm calling them super complications because, one, I just like to play on watch words, but two, they're not just bigger than the standard complications, they're informational escalations that manage to be denser without sacrificing legibility. Edward Tufte would be so proud. On the infographic, I'm calling it the utility version, but it's just the infographic version, in addition to the hour, minute, and second hands, you also have room for 4 wedges in the corners and 4 circles in the middle. On infographic modular, in addition to the hour and minute, frustratingly, there's still no digital second face other than the not ideal for all occasions activity face, you can also fit a small rectangle up top, 4 circles on the left and along the bottom, and a giant rectangle right in the center. You can fill them up with communication apps and contacts if you're running around playing Secret Agent. You can fill them with world clocks and trackers if you're traveling. You can fill them up with fitness features if you're off to a workout, or you can mix and match to best suit your average activities. And they're so informationally rich. For example, in addition to the classic day and date, calendar curves your next appointment around the top of the dial. Timer shows how much has elapsed and how much remains along the total duration. Weather shows not only the current temperature, but where it sits relative to the day's highs and lows. And it even uses color to provide additional data, like relative coolness or hotness. Developers can plug into all the new super complications through updates to ClockKit. And that's where the real fun is going to begin. Apple Watch Series 4, the casing. The new design language is, not surprisingly, all curves in iPhone X as well. The result is an Apple Watch casing that's thinner but more spacious, bigger in surface but smaller in volume. You know, that trick Apple's industrial design team just keeps on pulling. I can't really tell if it feels lighter and flatter on my wrist or if that's just a sensory illusion. The human brain has its nasty habit of obliterating objective measures like millimeters and milligrams for subjective feels like newness and shininess. My cuffs say it doesn't really fit any better under them than the previous models did, but we're getting there. It comes at a price though. For everything Apple's giving us with the new design, it's taking something away from the finishes and the materials. First is rose gold. Apple ditched it entirely from iPhone X last year and effectively from iPhone 8 by merging it with the old champagne color to create a new blushing hybrid. This year, Apple's doing the same thing to the watch. And yeah, hey, if you're rose gold on the MacBook, you need to run for your anodized life. This new unified gold, to my eyes, is just a touch deeper than blush. It continues Apple's tradition of providing something that looks opulent, even over the top, but not chintzy or gaudy. You can get it on the aluminum model alongside silver and space gray. Entirely new for this year, you can also get gold on the stainless steel model as well. It matches the new steel gold of the new iPhone XS and iPhone XS Max if you want to get your coordination on. You can't anodize steel like you can aluminum, so Apple is using a physical vapor deposition or PVD process to achieve the gold look. It's similar to what Apple's done in the past with the Space Black Apple Watch. That model uses a diamond-like carbon, DLC, type of PVD, which makes for an incredibly hard, scratch-resistant finish. Now, not all PVD is DLC, so we'll have to wait and see just how tough Apple's PVD gold turns out to be. If PVD isn't your thing, you can also still get the steel watch with its polished silver finish. The new steel gold also comes at a cost. Apple made room for it by deleting the ceramics as though they were bezels. That's right, Apple Watch Edition 2015 to 2018, RIP. After launching the original watch with an 18-karat yellow and rose gold edition, Apple right-marketed that down to a single white ceramic edition for Series 2, then expanded it back up to a white and a gray ceramic edition for Series 3. Ceramic is a staple of higher-end watches, and I liked it enough to buy it both years it was offered. I'll mourn its loss, especially because gold is way less my thing. Apple knows its numbers best though, so I imagine steel will have a long reign on top of the materials and the price chart. Hopefully, it'll be successful enough that Apple can afford to start offering or including more than just polished silver lugs in the high-end band boxes as well. With Series 3, LTE models were identifiable by this thirsty red punch to the digital crown cap. While the look wasn't unheard of in the watch world, it often clashed to the point of being unsightly and was always something that you could just never unsee. On Series 4, the dot is replaced by a slightly less thirsty red ring. LTE iPads seem to survive just fine without any red power buttons though, so I'm not sure why watch feels the need to be so noisy here. The non-LTE models, by contrast, sport a much classier black ring. The inside of the digital crown has been redesigned as well. Apple increased the number of components inside the mechanism by 21%, but decreased the overall size by 30%. Now that's a lot of nerdy information that'll only appeal to people interested in how Apple keeps pumping more and more battery filling into the casing cake. What'll appeal to everyone though is the new haptics. They work the same as Force Touch and 3D Touch. It uses the fact that our senses are a lie and our fingers are proprioceptive liars to emit vibrations that feel, for all intents and purposes, like precise incremental clicks. The crown was designed as a way to let you scroll the interface without your chubby human finger blocking out the display. Since I'm more of an iPhone person than a watch person, I've stayed stuck to tapping with my chubby human fingers anyway, except in cases where a list refuses to scroll by any mechanism other than the crown. Then I remember it's there. The new clicking absolutely feels more precise and more fun to use. It's catchy, if not quite AirPods lid flipping catchy. I'm not sure it's catchy enough to break me of my bad habits just yet, but I'm a huge believer in the future of tactile interface, and I very much like where Apple is going with this. The side button is flush now, but still a real button. It doesn't make Series 4 any more water resistant or quote-unquote swim-proof than Series 3 was. That's still the same. But it does make it a little harder to find with just your finger, which might be an accessibility issue for some people. If you're not used to Apple Watch conventions, you'll still be able to tell that something is there. It just might take some experimentation or explicit information to help you figure out what exactly it is. If you're at all used to Apple Watch though, you won't even notice what you're not noticing. You'll just press the side and it'll work same as ever. On the bottom is a new sensor array. It's all black, ceramic, and sapphire, even on the aluminum models. There's a newly unified optical heart sensor in the middle and an entirely new electrical heart sensor around it. More on that in a minute. Between the crown and the side button is a relocated microphone. Apple says it was moved to reduce echo. Now, I've never had a problem with echo on the Series 3, but the Series 4 also boasts a redesigned speaker system that's much louder than before. And I'm guessing if the mic hadn't been moved, yeah, there'd be echo, because everything from Siri to calls now booms. Like booms. It does still sound roomy on the other end, and it's still clearer next to your mouth than it is at an arm's length, but if everything else is quiet, I can make out a conversation from a good dozen feet away, and from a device that's smaller than your average s'more, that's pretty damn amazing. There's no notch like on iPhone 10 because there's no front-facing camera module like on iPhone 10. Should there be one? I don't know. Anything but the briefest of FaceTime video calls wouldn't just be power hungry, it would be tiring. But the end result is the same. The most impressive hardware package Apple has ever shipped. Again, Apple Watch Series 4, the sensors. The black ceramic and sapphire crystal backplate on Apple Watch Series 4 doesn't just look better in a Tony Stark arc reactor kind of way, though it certainly does that, it works better. Apple added the original optical heart sensor to the original Apple Watch simply to get as accurate a calorie count as possible. It quickly proved to be much more capable than that though. Most recently, Apple began using it to detect spikes in heart rate and alert you so you could go see your primary care physician for follow-up. That saved lives. With watchOS 5, in addition to elevated heart rates, Apple Watch will also be looking out for slow heart rates as well. You can set your own threshold and, if it registers for more than 10 minutes, you'll be alerted. It's not just the highs and lows though. watchOS 5 will be paying attention to any irregular rhythm. Atrial fibrillation is hard to catch, and Apple Watch won't be able to catch every instance of AFib. But when and if it does, it'll notify you so you can get to your doctor and get it looked at. Stat. It's important enough and novel enough that the United States Food and Drug Administration has granted it de novo, a fancy Latin word for new, status. It'll be available to everyone with an Apple Watch Series 1 or later in the US in the Health app later this year, and hopefully in many other places once other national health regulators approve it. Likewise, the new ECG app. ECG and EKG are interchangeable acronyms for electrocardiogram. Unique to Apple Watch Series 4 and its new electrical heart rate sensor that's split between a ring around the optical sensor on the back and a titanium top on the digital crown on the side, it tests and records the timing and strength of your heartbeat. Yeah, it sounds like pure sci-fi. It's a single pad equivalent test where most medicals use 12 pads, so the data is limited. It also requires you to have the watch on your wrist and the finger of your opposite hand on the digital crown to complete the circuit, and it takes a full 30 seconds to take a reading. Even then, it'll only generate a PDF report that you can send to your cardiologist. In other words, it's still extremely limited, but it can tell you if your heart is in sinus rhythm or atrial fibrillation, and it can provide critical long-term data as part of your overall medical plan. Again, saves lives. So can the new fall detection, which uses the new accelerometer and gyroscope to determine when you've taken a fall and may require emergency assistance. The new motion sensors have twice the dynamic range, sample 8 times faster, and can measure up to 32 G-forces. That lets them identify the physical characteristics of a fall, a slip, or a trip, including your arm movements and acceleration and what's probably rapid deceleration. When you hit the ground, you can immediately tap to call emergency services and alert your emergency contacts. Critically, if you don't start moving again and try to get up within a minute, your Apple Watch will make the call for you. Now, Apple didn't specifically test falls as a result of seizures or violent attacks, which could have very different patterns from slips or trips, but if Apple Watch does detect a fall, and small or isolated movements aside, if you don't get up again, it should still autodial after a minute. As someone who's had loved ones' lives shattered and even ultimately ended, all tracing back to a series of falls, I can't tell you how important this single feature is to me. Whether it's for older family members who might take a bone-breaking tumble or friends who insist on mountain biking alone, it's enough to make me want to get every single one of them an Apple Watch 4, and enough to make me already have ordered it for several of them. Deepest thanks to everyone on the team who made this feature, version 1.0 as it may be a reality. Apple Watch Series 4, the internals. Every great RISC computer needs, well, a great computer. Apple's been making ultra-small, ultra-efficient systems-in-package SiP since the original watch, and this year it's gone to 4. S4. In a year when Qualcomm took the old, already rehashed phone chip it previously shipped for wearables and rehashed it again with some new coprocessor frosting, Apple's pushing its industry-leading silicon team another generation forward. Again, a year older and 2 times faster. Lest you think that's a good thing for Apple or for us, it's not. Selling silicon is a tough business, but the market needs more and better competition, badly. You notice the performance difference when you do even simple things like swiping between the more complex than ever watch faces, calling up Siri, or blasting through the improved and new communications, health, and fitness features. Also incremented this year is Apple's W Series wireless chipset. W1 is inside the AirPods, W2 the Apple Watch Series 3. Now W3 has come to the Apple Watch Series 4. Yeah, it's a lot of not quite lined up numbers, but the important part is this. Bluetooth 5.0 support. It makes everything from setup to sync to transfer faster and more power efficient. The new black ceramic and sapphire sensor panel on the back is also newly RF transparent, so the cellular signal can pass not just through the top, around the display, but through the bottom, at least out of the edges not blocked by our fleshy waterlogged wrists. That makes cellular better, stronger, and more power efficient as well. Otherwise, the LTE is still the same, as is the 802.11 BGN 2.4 GHz Wi-Fi. That's to be expected given the constraints of something the size of Apple Watch, but I still want more. No, not Android compatibility. That'd be just a short-lived stopgap for the few people who want the watch but not the phone. Unlike iTunes on Windows, Apple Watch doesn't need to look elsewhere for a bigger market. It is the market. It just needs to keep on growing. And that doesn't take more dependencies, it takes independence. iPhone and iPad broke free from the PC and went all in on iCloud with iOS 5. It'll take Apple Watch a little longer than watchOS 5 to similarly break free from iPhone, but once it does, it won't need anything else, anything but our login, I hope. Apple Watch Series 4, the bands. Okay, put the hacksaw and glue gun down and back away from the craft table. Apple Watch bands remain 100% backwards and forwards compatible. That means if you already have bands from an older, quote-unquote, smaller Apple Watch, they'll fit perfectly on the new, quote-unquote, bigger Apple Watch. And vice versa. 38mm and 40mm models use the exact same lugs, grooves, and rapid switch system, as do 42mm and 44mm models. Good thing too, or I'd still be crumpled up into a little ball on the steps of the Steve Jobs Theater, sobbing into my overstuffed band box. Especially good because it looks like some bands have gone the way of the bezel and the ceramics. And yeah, the rose gold. No, not modern buckle. That's been given a reprieve, at least as sold separately. Woven nylon and classic buckles, though, are gone. Now, I love the loops. They're like sweatpants for our wrists, but the buckles class things up, so I hope it's not the last we've seen of them. Unlike previous years, Apple hasn't added any new band styles either. Maybe that's because all the remaining fruit is higher hanging. We'll have to wait and see. What's left prepackaged are the sport bands and sport loops in white or seashell, black or pink sand, and Nike sport bands and Nike sport loops in black or anthracite, summit white or pure platinum, and Milanese, now in silver, space black, and steel gold. Additional colors including nectarine, hibiscus, storm, indigo, forest, Cape Cod, and peony, as well as modern buckle and leather loops are all available for post-purchase. The most interesting are also the most expensive though. Hermes single and double tours, rally, and deployment. There are new colors, but there are also new multicolors, and Apple made those carry through to the new Hermes watch faces as well. Those are distinct to the Apple Watch Series 4, alas. Apple Watch Series 4, the conclusion. If you have an iPhone, you should have an Apple Watch, and you should probably have a Series 4. If you don't have one at all, don't give me any crap about not wanting or needing a watch or wearable computer. That's what certain people of a certain mindset used to say about always connected pocket computers, phones, whatever you want to call them. And now we take them totally for granted. Apple Watch can't replace your iPhone, not yet, but it can save your life, and in ways I desperately hope will soon be taken just as totally for granted. It lets you have fun, sure. It keeps you connected, great. It motivates you to stay active, and you need to. But all the while, it's also lying there in wait, ready to spring into action the moment you need it. If you're swimming or jogging or biking and don't have your phone but need help, or if you're in an accident and your phone is thrown out of reach, Apple Watch can still make the call. If your heart rate is elevated or slow or coming soon, has an irregular rhythm, your Apple Watch can alert you and keep gathering data so you can keep checking with your doctor and make sure you have what they need to get you the help you might need. If you're climbing the stairs or hiking the trail and you fall or slip or trip and literally cannot get back up, Apple Watch can call in your backup. If that last part isn't as critical to you, you can save money and get a freshly discounted Apple Watch Series 3 starting at $279 or $379 for cellular. If it is critical, and I'd argue you should seriously consider it to be critical, you can get an Apple Watch Series 4 starting at $399 or $499 for cellular. Yes, that may be expensive if you already have a connected computer in your pocket or hand, on your desk and or on your lap. Even though it has a cool new design, gorgeous edge-to-edge display, and terrific new super complications. And yes, because it's still missing always on time and sleep tracking and the equivalent of an iPhone upgrade program, it might be expensive. If you have an older Apple Watch and you're thinking about upgrading, consider whether or not LTE or the new design and the new sensors make it worthwhile to you. I'd argue for Series 0 and Series 1, it's a no-brainer at this point. For Series 2, it's compelling. For Series 3, you have to really want the new display, ECG, and fall detection. And I do. If you don't have an Apple Watch yet, you should get one. Not because wearable connected computing is increasingly capable and ultimately inevitable, though it is and soon will be, but for the reasons I stated at the very beginning, and for one that applies right now, today. It can save your life. Now, I want to show you one more thing. The perfect complement for your brand new Apple Watch is Brilliant. They have a bunch of courses teaching you the fundamentals of computer science for those of you who are new to the field. Each course is interactive and breaks up complicated concepts into bite-sized chunks to make sure you actually absorb the information. A strategy which I wish was used when I was in college. Just go to brilliant.org/vector and give it a shot. Who knows? Maybe you could be the next one on Johnny Cerrugi's team. Thank you, Brilliant. Now, are you going to get an Apple Watch Series 4? If so, do you already have an Apple Watch and you're planning to upgrade? Will this be the first Apple Watch you're considering getting? Or are you still taking a wait and see attitude with Apple Watch? And if so, why so? Hit like, hit subscribe, and then let me know in the comments below. And thank you so much for watching.